All right. How are we doing, guys? Another Sunday afternoon, another weekend in review as our players continue to perform well for club. Now, we do not technically have a top 10 this weekend because there weren't quite 10 strong performances. How's the audio, by the way? Let me know how the audio is because it's not registering that my mic is showing. So let me know in the comments how the audio is doing. But we didn't quite have top 10 strong performances to talk about, but we had enough. And I'm going to segue into a topic that I think is very pertinent right now, and it has to do with dual national recruitment because Nathaniel Brown continues to perform really, really well for Eintracht Frankfurt, even though it was off the bench this weekend. Ashen B.A. Pillman says, audio is perfectly fine. Good to know, Ashen. Thank you. Green Great Basin, Pete looking handsome per usual. Why, thank you. Diet Kool-Aid. Hello, Pete. How are we doing, guys? How is your Sunday? Are you having fun? I've got Chicago Fire versus Inter Miami on the TV here. What Berhalter hate watch, as Tack likes to call it, which is weird for me because usually I'm rooting for Chicago, and I still kind of am, but I also not. It's complicated. It's like that relationship where you really like, your partner, but also you don't. They've hurt you a lot. So you're like, it's kind of like that's my relationship with the Chicago Fire right now. It's like, I've been hurt a lot before, and now you did this big thing, hiring Berhalter. That makes me mad, but I still have a lot of strong feelings for you, but I don't like this. How do I resolve it? That's kind of my relationship with the Fire right now. So maybe, just maybe, I'm exploring a new relationship, and I think there's something better out there for me in terms of a team that will be part of a league that is introducing Pro Rel. Did you just start? Says Marcus Jaco. What do you mean by did I just start? What? The stream? Yeah. Stream just started like 2 minutes ago. Julian Vivas. Hello, Pete. James, Greg versus Inter Miami today. Diet Kool-Aid says, my Sunday is going good. Just ate me some Wingstop chicken sandwich. It was lemon pepper flavor. It's really good. You should try it. All right. Good to know. No, Wingstop lemon pepper flavor. I like Wingstop. Winelkai, what's up? Yes, the Lord did not eat those turkeys. I saw you. Yeah, I was having fun. Is Potch scouting the Chicago Fire game as well? Well, at least there's more of a reason to scout Chicago. You've got Chris Brady and Brian Gutierrez. That's better than scouting Atlanta. But we're gonna get into the granular on that with Potch because I did speak to a source this morning about the situation. So yeah, that's sort of the situation. Did you hear about the new team and stadium being built in Buffalo, New York, a USL team? I did hear about that. Julian Vivas says, Pete, the audio is glitchy. Glitchy how? Like, am I cutting in and out? What's the situation? I'm going to turn off the TV in case it's using too much internet. See how that goes. BMR says, I was about to ask if it was glitchy for anyone else. Not sure. Not sure. Is it still glitchy or was it just momentary glitchiness? Weston has a full house. Jacob Ramirez says, is Potch just a fraud? I'm really starting to dislike him. Sorry, guys. I'm plugged into the wall on the internet and I turned everything else off, cleared the cache. All right, let's give it a minute just to simmer. Hope it's not too bad here. Not glitchy anymore, says Julian Vivas. Okay, we'll take it. We'll take it. I think I'm going to get a new laptop this week. That's what I think is going to happen because I think it's a 5-year-old laptop now, so it's time for an upgrade anyways. And I think, laptop shelf life, especially when you're streaming live, it becomes difficult. Weston illegal gambling. Yes, we've heard about that. Weston McKennie, illegal gambling, guys. Not what you want to hear at all. I don't know if it's true, but he's one of many players being investigated for it. That would be so very, very Weston, if you know what I mean. If you were like anybody in the national team that would get in trouble for illegal gambling, it would be either Des or Weston McKennie, right? Time for Caven. He's not even ready for MLS yet. So let's take a pause on getting excited about him. Weston Gambing. Is Poch really trying to scout Guzan? I would be very surprised if he's scouting Guzan. It'd be weird, but his call-ups recently have been bizarre. Yeah, they have. Weston Gambling Ranch bottles. Yeah. Weston, you just never know what that guy's going to get up to, right? You just never know. Like, nothing would surprise me with Weston, and nothing would surprise me with Dest. They're the two wild cards of this team, where you just don't know what would happen with those two. All right, let's get into it. So like I said, it's not a top 10. So I'm not going from 10 down to 1 the way that I usually do, because there's really only 8 performances that I want to talk about. The first one is Chris Richards over at Crystal Palace, played versus Manchester City. Played 90 minutes, obviously. They lost that game 5-2. It's Manchester City versus Crystal Palace. But he did score a goal. One good header. Also had one pass into the final third. 1 clearance, 2 blocks, 4 clearances, 1 interception, 4 out of 6 ground duels won, and 1 out of 2 aerial duels won. BMR says, didn't Crystal Palace give up 5 goals? Yes, they did. Yes, they did. But if you score a goal against Manchester City, you're going to make it into the top 10, right? I'm not saying it was the perfect performance. I don't think it was. But you still scored a goal against Manchester City. And for USMNT top 10 purposes, especially now when things are looking a little bleak, you know, it all depends on what else has happened that week. And to be honest, not that much. So he did make it into the top 10. This was the goal. It was a good header. It was a good corner. He got straight up into the box, towered above everybody, and headed it home. So well done, Chris Richards. Now, Cameron Carter-Vickers. A topic of much debate in USMNT circles, because playing for Celtic, we all know how that is. Generally plays well, although has hiccups from time to time. Hasn't been great for the USMNT, generally speaking. Did score an absolute worldie of a Golazzo against Kilmarnock this weekend, though. Played 90 minutes, 1 goal, 183 out of 192 passes, 31 passes into the final third, which is the funny thing, right? Like, when you watch the passing stats of Celtic against everybody else, he gets a lot of time on the ball. And I mean a lot of time on the ball. 6 clearances, 6 recoveries, 4 out of 5 aerial duels won, which is great. And they ended up winning this game 5-1. But boy, what was this? What a goal. Now, you could argue maybe he was trying to cross, but it looked pretty intentional to me. Real Golazzo into the top corner of the net. Question here. What do you think of Edgar Moreno's comments about Poch regarding Nini Brown? Is he right, or is he over-exaggerating? Is Poch scouting Cobb and Miller? Well, Noah Cobb is with the U20s, and so is Peyton Miller. So I would be a little bit surprised if Poch was scouting them, to be honest. But, you know, it just feels like him and his staff are scouting a lot of MLS games where we don't really have anybody in MLS that could be a key contributor, you know? And so it does feel like we can still appreciate what Poch does well. But here's the thing. If these MLS guys were coming in and crushing it, it wouldn't be so bad, but they're not. And so that makes it really difficult to understand why we have a guy like Nathaniel Brown, who I'm going to talk about as well. Why we have a guy like him who should be called up, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, and recruited, but not, like, again, who are you watching? Under 20 players? You can have the under 20 coach should be doing that. You should be thinking about who's going to make us better for Gold Cup. And that's the big issue with Poch right now, right? It was not his weak foot. CCV is right-footed. So that was, but it was a really, really nice goal. I'll give him credit there. Griffin Yow of Westerlo scores a second goal in a second game. He's got 2 in the last 2, this time against OH Leuven. Played 90 minutes, 1 goal, 2 chances created, 1 out of 2 successful dribbles, 4 out of 7 ground duels won, 1 out of 4 aerial duels won, and 1 foul drawn. Now, as always with the Belgian league, it's very, very hard to find the goals. So I don't know what kind of goal this was. I searched YouTube, I searched Twitter, I searched some sites that I usually go to looking for highlights and goals. Haven't been able to find it. They do post them on YouTube, but like 5 days later on the Jupiler Pro League channel. So if they show it here, like if it happens on the weekend, they don't show it for a while. But he is rounding into form, right? And I don't know if, I don't know if Brian Reynolds and Griffin Yow will be there after this summer, because there was a report that came out this week that because of financial fair play rules, it seems like it's a thing where, this kid, the rules apply to certain small teams, but not to big teams. See Manchester City. They're going to have to sell some players. So the report I heard, I think it was Larry Henry reported it for SBI or something. I don't remember. Don't get me on that they were going to sell both of them. And I think both of them should probably try to make a move, maybe to the Eredivisie, or somewhere like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Griffin Yow and Brian Reynolds both at the end of this season, because it does look like they will no longer be with Westerlo much longer. Malik Tillman for PSV Eindhoven, speaking against 2-2, got a goal in 63 minutes versus Almere City FC. 1 goal, 2 chances created, 2 out of 3 accurate crosses, 5 out of 5 tackles won, 1 out of 6 ground duels won, 0 out of 0 aerial duels won. Now, the goal he scored last week was an amazing goal, a real golazzo. This one, less so, but goals are goals. It was shot at the keeper, bounced out to him, nobody tracking him in the box, and he just volleyed it home. He had time to take a touch to bring it down and then volley it home nicely. So that takes Malik Tillman to 16 goal contributions on the season, despite the injuries that he has had. And as always, hopefully he can stay healthy, and hopefully he can start doing this for the national team, because that continues to be the question mark hanging over all of our players. It's like, great, we're glad you're doing it for club. We're glad you're performing at a high level. Why doesn't it happen when you put on the USA shirt? And I think that is the lingering issue in the minds of many fans, media, and content creators nowadays. Everybody I talk to really has the same concerns. And that applies to our boy Malik as well. Christian Pulisc of AC Milan got an assist against Udinese from a corner. He also created 4 chances in the game, 0 out of 2 successful dribbles, 1 out of 4 accurate long balls, 1 out of 4 accurate long balls, 2 out of 3 accurate crosses, that should say, 1 out of 7 ground duels won, and 0 out of 1 aerial duels won. It wasn't his best game, but like we've said before about Christian Pulisic, he tends to be a streaky guy. And when he gets a goal or an assist, it does him a world of confidence. Now, last season, Christian Pulisic got 26 goal contributions for Milan. This assist today brings him to 25. And there's still quite a few games left to play. So it's very possible that this is the start of a new streak for him, and potentially he could break his best ever season, which was 26 goal contributions last season. He could break it for Milan this season. Despite the terrible season that Milan is having, Christian Pulisic continues to be one of their best players. This was the assist. Was a nice, good corner, headed in quite nicely, and Milan ended up winning this 4-0 away from home, which typically Milan hadn't been good away from home this season. So, we just have to kind of try and look at Pulisic's individual performances and hope that will translate to Gold Cup this summer, which, by the way, Edgar Moreno put out, and it was fair of him, because on the broadcast for the Canada game, the commentator mentioned that we are bringing a MLS heavy roster to the Gold Cup. That has been debunked. According to Jeff Carlisle, they are going to bring a full roster to the Gold Cup, depending on who's available. McKennie, Weah, and Gio Reyna might not be available because they have Club World Cup duties. But I do think that we should. Nobody should get the summer off. After Copa America, after the disaster that was Nations League, no one deserves the summer off. Every single one of them needs to get their butts over to this country, play against Turkey, play against Switzerland, and then go and win the Gold Cup as a small measure of payback for the disappointments that they have foisted upon us as a fan base over the last, 6 years. They have a lot to atone for. Nobody should have the summer off. They don't deserve it. I'm sorry, they don't. You could make an argument, and some people have, that, should we be giving these guys the summer off, considering the World Cup is next summer and we don't want to tire them out? to be honest. I hear that argument, but I think right now, if we just send an MLS heavy roster and don't win the Gold Cup, the excitement is going to be lower than ever, right? I mean, I have never seen, since I started being a USMNT fan, I have never seen excitement lower since Kuva for this team. But at least with Kuva, there was this feeling of like, it's almost like we start from scratch all over again. And we still had this young generation that we saw coming up. So even though Kuva was such a disaster, we still had this hope of that maybe this young generation could be the generation that turns it around, and that our lowest moment could be the kick in the butt we need to really find our best, and that this generation would take us to new heights. Now, this generation so far is proving to be something of a disappointment. Well, let's hope. Let's hope, guys. Let's hope we figure it out this summer and win the Gold Cup in style, and hopefully return just a smidgen of faith back into this fan base that has been so beleaguered by what we've been forced to watch for how many years now. Speaking of members of the young generation, Caleb Wiley had a very good game for Watford against Hull City in midweek. I didn't see his game this weekend, so I don't know how he played, but he did get an assist on the winning goal. 90 minutes played, 1 assist, 2 chances created, 3 out of 3 successful dribbles, 1 out of 4 accurate crosses, 6 out of 11 ground duels won, 2 out of 4 aerial duels won, and 1 foul drawn. Now, Caleb Wiley is still just 19 years old, so we are hoping, look, Nathaniel Brown is the ideal backup to Anthony Robinson right now. But if for some reason Poch doesn't recruit him or Germany gets him, we're looking at probably somewhere between John Tolkien, Caleb Wiley, Kevin Paredes, not Christopher Lund, not Max Arfson, God forbid. But this was the assist. It was actually a good assist, a good cutback, and then it was flicked home quite nicely. But he was also very involved in the build-up to this goal. It wasn't just a cutback. He swapped passes with the hockey assist player too. So it was a very good performance by Caleb Wiley. He's been injured since the start of the season, and hopefully can start to find some form as the championship draws to a close. DeJuan Jones is better than Robinson. Oh, no. Green, Great Basin. What happened? Let's talk about Nini Brown. Yes, he was on the bench this weekend. Yes, he was. By the way, guys, smash that like button if you have not already. Yes, he was on the bench this weekend. But he also came off the bench, played 29 minutes, got 1 assist, created 3 chances, had a 100% passing accuracy, 2 out of 3 ground duels won, and 1 foul drawn. That is 7 goal contributions from him as a left back so far this season. 7 goal contributions for Nathaniel Brown, guys. And yet, and by the way, the reports came out today that he's being scouted by West Ham. He's being scouted by Manchester City. Against Heidenheim, I heard that Atletico Madrid scouts were in the stands watching him. And yet, we cannot be bothered. So I reached out to a source. I was like, what is going on with Nathaniel Brown? And obviously, my source has to be careful what they say. But they did mention that the U.S. Soccer is very aware of him. And the intention is to try to have him be in the Gold Cup this summer. Now, again, I don't know if that's true, and intentions are good, but intentions are really just sort of the starting point. You have to do more than intentions. You have to do real work to convince a high-ceiling player like Nathaniel Brown, who will have options, who will be brought in by Germany at some point if he keeps up the form that he's in, to come and represent us. And I hope that this isn't just the intention of, Matt Crocker or JT Batson or Cindy Parlo-Cone, but also hopefully of Pochettino himself, because Max Arfson is not the answer. I like Caleb Wiley and I like John Tolkien to a degree, but I don't think they have the same elite ceiling that this Nathaniel Brown guy has. And look, we saw this in the World Cup, right, in Qatar, where Anthony Robinson was very good in the group stage, but by the time we played the Netherlands, he gassed out. You can't just have quality in your starting lineup. You need quality in depth. All the best teams have quality in depth, and that is why they are successful. So recruiting depth matters. Recruiting quality in depth matters. Also, what about this Nations League where Anthony Robinson was injured? How good would it have been? How different could it maybe have been if we had, Nini Brown starting at left back instead of Max Arfson? right? And by the way, he can play wing back too, probably winger, especially in CONCACAF. So now we've got a guy who can cover at 2 positions. Something happens to Christian Pulisic, that's okay. You've got Nathaniel Brown who can play there too. And it just feels like the lackadaisical attitude towards this recruitment battle of a very key player is frustrating for everybody, because it's like, it's not like you're out here getting results. If you were out here getting results, we would still be pushing for this, of course, because we understand that getting results in CONCACAF is not the same as getting results, at the World Cup. But at least you could point to some measure of success, but you can't even do that. So you can't win in CONCACAF. You're not recruiting high ceiling players. You're busy attending MLS games and paying $18 for your fucking pretzel, although Poch probably isn't paying for shit. But it just feels so frustrating to a fan base that has been disappointed over and over and over again. This was the assist, his 7th goal contribution on the season. He was played into space via a through ball and then cut it back nicely. Not the greatest assist in the world, but once again, a guy who's putting up numbers in the Bundesliga, while Pochettino is twiddling his thumbs over in Atlanta. Brian White. Now, let me be clear. I don't think Brian White is USMNT quality, okay? I don't think he should be anywhere near the national team. But he is, at least for now. He was in the Nations League squad, and he was in the Camp Cupcake squad. And if you score 4 goals, even if it is in MLS, you will make the top 10, which he did do against Austin FC. Played 90 minutes, scored 4 goals, won a penalty, which was actually saved, not from him. I think it was Daniel Rios who took the penalty. So good for him. Brian White is not our number 1 striker. He's not even our number 3 striker, Jar. Come on. This was one of the goals, sort of popped out to him, and he finished quite well. All his goals tend to be sort of poacher's finishes, where he's in the right place at the right time. This was an easy one. Austin, fell asleep here, and he chipped the keeper. I don't know what the defense is doing. This was a good finish, too. Again, it fell to him in the box, finished again well, and then this was yet another goal, which he, finished. I think it bounced off a player and bounced to him, and he tucked it home. So well done to Brian White. That doesn't mean he should be on the national team. But if you look at other MLS strikers, compared to the other MLS strikers that are being considered for national team duty, Brandon Vasquez, and let's talk real quick about Brandon Vasquez here, because do you guys remember when Brandon Vasquez was signed by Austin from Monterrey, and their technical director went on this near teary-eyed rant about how Brandon Vasquez, a USMNT striker, they can come to MLS, it's good. What a steal for us. The steal. We got Brandon Vasquez. And everyone was like, what? Steal? I mean, no. The guy's had 1 good season, his entire career, and he's 27 years old. And he spent his entire career either in MLS or in Liga MX. So, this guy's not a good striker. Come on. And so far, in 8 games, Brandon Vasquez has 1 goal. This is MLS, guys, where defending is optional. 1 goal. So you're not even the juxtaposition between the technical director going on this crazy rant versus the actual production numbers of Brandon Vasquez in MLS is just quite funny to me, because I don't think Brandon Vasquez was ever all that. I don't. And yet somehow some people are like, Brandon Vasquez can do it. No, he did it for 1 season in Cincinnati and hasn't had a good season since then. And he's in his prime, just not a good player. I'd take 40-something Charlie Davies over Vasquez, says Green Gray Basin. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options. And then the other one, Patrick Aguimang, also a guy who was like, oh, he's the new hot thing. He scored in Camp Cupcake. He scored against, Canada. Yeah, he took an easy shot straight at the goalkeeper, and he got lucky that it bounced off and went off the keeper and went in. But he's got 1 goal in 7 games in Charlotte, right? So neither of these guys is exactly lighting up even MLS, which should be the bare minimum if you're going to play for the national team. The absolute bare minimum should be you are absolutely killing it in MLS. Neither of them is doing so, right? Brian White at least is putting up numbers, right? Hey, Colin, long time no see. To be fair, Colin says, to be fair, Keith Costigan and Maurice Edu rate Brandon Vasquez. See, Colin, unlike you, I can watch players for myself. I can watch them for myself and make up my own mind. I don't need Keith Costigan or Maurice Sadu to tell me what to think about a player. It's one of those things about being human and having eyes and a brain where you can watch, you can read stats, and you can decide for yourself. Just like you thought for a while that Brandon Bye was an excellent player. I disagree, but you don't need somebody else to tell you what to think. You can think for yourself. So yeah, at least credit to Brian White. At least he's putting up numbers in MLS, which you cannot say for Brandon Vasquez, and you cannot say for Patrick Anguimang. So, guys, I'm hoping that Nathaniel Brown will be in camp. I really hope so. I think hopefully they are talking to him by now. At least my source seemed to indicate that that was the situation. But I cannot verify that for sure. I'm just giving you a little bit of possibility that it's possible that maybe they realized after, Nations League that was something they needed to do. And hopefully they are. Agyemang not getting service. Jar, this is a nonsense. This is nonsense. In MLS, you don't need service to score goals, right? If you can't score goals in MLS, why should you be on the national team, right? Everybody gets service at some point, right? You could say he only has 4 goals because of a lack of service. 1 goal in 7 games is not just a lack of service. And by the way, a lack of service is only one aspect of it. How about movement off the ball? How's your movement? How about you getting involved in chance creation? Does he have any assists? No. Look, Charlotte are still scoring goals without him, right? Even though he's not scoring, they're still scoring goals. He's just not able to do it. So I just think that, did they start talking to him due to pressure? I don't know. I don't know if it was due to pressure, but we got to them, right? Because they posted this thing about, oh, Jesus Perez is going to be here watching this MLS game and Poch is going to be here. And then all the comments were like, what the fuck are we doing? And then they deleted it. So clearly they are like, okay, wow, this was not a good response from the fans. I think that pressure does work. I do think they watch carefully the socials. I think they watch what the media says. I think they watch what the content creators say. And I don't think it always works, but I know for a fact that we played a big part in Greg Berhalter getting fired. Jar says, well, that is what we say about Sargent on the national team. But see, I don't just say that. I think Sargent can be better for the national team. It's not just a lack of service, because Pepe seems to be able to score goals for the national team. Balogun seems to be able to score goals for the national team. When a striker is not scoring goals, sure, sometimes it's a lack of service and that plays its part, but sometimes it's a lack of movement, right? And sometimes it's a lack of decision-making, and sometimes it's a lack of confidence. And sometimes, there's a lot of different reasons why a striker can't score. And again, in MLS, where the defending is terrible, you should be able to score goals if you are supposedly a USMNT level forward, which in my opinion, Agyemang is not, right? Lucky goals that bounce off a goalkeeper notwithstanding. All right, guys, smash the like button if you haven't already. Thanks for hanging. Seems like our internet issues were fixed, so that's good to see. I am probably going to be getting a new laptop here soon, so we don't have these issues again. And have a great rest of your Sunday. Poch to Pepe, mete el gol. What does mete el gol mean? Jar says Poch's staff watching Ledesma and saying he isn't as good as MLSers is just as bad. Agreed. Ledesma should have been there over Max Arfson, right? All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your Sunday. I'm going to go play some disc golf. And, we got one more here from Julian Vivas. Are they going to bring someone else for Gold Cup or just Nini Brown? I want to see Downs, Wiley, Tolkien. Tack and I are going to do a video in midweek where we discuss the potential Gold Cup roster, who we would bring, but also who we think Pochettino will bring. So we're going to have a video about that out in midweek. I think they should bring Brown and A-Rob to the Gold Cup. That would, those are our 2 best left backs. But yeah, there are other guys that we should absolutely be trying to bring in as well. All right. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Let's go USA.